If at first you don't succeed, dust yourself off and try again. Aaliyah sang those words to the world. She was 22 when a small plane carrying her and 8 others fell out of the sky in the Bahamas. She never got to try again. Aaliyah Dana Houghton sold over 32 million records and redefined R&B before she could legally rent a car. She was an actress, a style icon, and the voice of a generation just beginning to find itself. She was laid to rest at Ferncliff Cemetery in Hartsdale, New York, inside a private mausoleum. For 25 years, that tomb stayed sealed. Then they opened it. What they found inside connects directly to a confession about the plane that killed her. And it changes everything we were told about that night. For 25 years, Aaliyah's tomb at Ferncliff stayed sealed. Fans made pilgrimages to the cemetery. They left roses, candles, and letters at the mausoleum. But the chamber itself remained closed. No cameras, no access, no exceptions. Then the family made a decision. The tomb was going to be opened. Why now? Why after 25 years? The emotional reason came first. Aaliyah was only 22 when she died. Her brother Rashad was her closest protector. Her mother Diane had been her anchor through a childhood spent in the spotlight. Her parents carried the loss of their daughter for over 2 decades. Diane Houghton passed in recent years, and the family wanted to honor what had been sealed inside before more time slipped away. Then came the official reason. Ferncliff's preservation team flagged the older mausoleum section for a structural and climate review. But here is something most people do not know. That review had been requested years earlier. For years, nothing happened. Then suddenly it moved. Nobody has explained the delay. What were they not ready to face? A small team was assembled. No press, no record label representatives, no outside parties. Aaliyah's family had been quietly holding something since 2001. Materials connected to the crash that the official investigation never fully addressed. And they had sealed it inside her tomb. To understand what was found, you first need to understand why Ferncliff was chosen. Because it was private, protected, and far from the industry that had surrounded her short life. When Aaliyah died on August 25, 2001, the grief was overwhelming. Fans gathered outside her family's New York home. Her funeral procession featured 22 white doves released into the sky, one for each year of her life. Thousands lined the streets. MTV and BET ran tributes for days. She was 22 years old at the absolute peak of her career, with a new album and a Hollywood future ahead of her. Her parents, Diane and Michael Houghton, made the burial decision. They chose Ferncliff in Hartsdale, New York, close to home. They rejected anything public. They wanted their daughter protected, away from the cameras that had followed her since she was a child star. The family kept her resting place private and secure. Flowers were placed on every anniversary. The doves from her funeral became a permanent symbol of her memory. That matters more than it sounds, because the family did not just bury their daughter. They sealed materials inside that tomb, connected to the questions that haunted them about how she died. The tomb was not just where Aaliyah rested. It was where her family kept what they needed the world to one day understand. The cemetery was closed before dawn at 4:30 a.m. The New York night was quiet and cold. Staff had been cleared from the mausoleum wing. A single family-appointed security officer stood at the entrance. The team was 4 people, 1 structural engineer, 1 preservation specialist, 1 funeral director, 1 family representative. Their access required authorization from both the cemetery and the Houghton family. Rashad Houghton, Aaliyah's brother, was reportedly informed. Whether he was present has not been confirmed. Imagine being Rashad, the brother who spent his life protecting his little sister, who lost her at 22, waiting to learn what his family had sealed inside the tomb he had visited for a quarter century. The work took 4 hours. When the inner chamber was accessed, the team stepped back. The family representative moved forward alone. It was the first time since her funeral in August 2001 that any human being had seen Aaliyah's resting place. 25 years of silence, and now this. Here is something important to understand about the chamber. The family had it sealed with preservation-grade materials beyond standard mausoleum specifications. The kind used to protect documents for decades. That choice was deliberate. Whoever made it expected what was inside to be recovered one day. And they wanted it to survive. Then the items were found, objects that appeared on no record. The family representative asked everyone to step back. Something had been found, something significant. The documented items were accounted for first. A photograph of Aaliyah with her brother Rashad, the two of them laughing, a small cross. A copy of the script from her film, Romeo Must Die. A delicate gold necklace she often wore, and a single white feather, preserved and sealed. It came from one of the 22 doves released at her funeral. Her mother had kept it. Think about that for a moment. A mother standing at her daughter's funeral, watching 22 doves rise into the sky, one for every year her child had lived, and reaching down to keep a single feather that fell. She held that feather for years. She placed it beside her daughter because it was the last physical piece of the moment she said goodbye. That feather was not a keepsake. It was a mother holding on to the exact second the world let her daughter go. Most people would see that feather and call it a sweet gesture. But think about the mother who kept it. A woman who raised a child star, who protected her through an industry that consumes young girls, who then had to bury her at 22. For that mother, keeping a feather from her daughter's funeral was not sentiment. It was the only piece of that day soft enough to hold without breaking. The only part of losing her child that did not cut. Then came the things that were never supposed to be found. Inside a sealed container sat documents the family had gathered after the crash. Notes, records, and sealed envelopes marked, "Until the full truth is known." Some names have never been disclosed. Sources say the materials reference the circumstances of the flight and the people who arranged it. And then the detail that changed everything. Among the documents was material concerning the pilot and the aircraft. The plane was reportedly overloaded. The pilot was not properly certified to fly it, and questions about who authorized that flight, knowing the risks, had never been answered. If someone arranged for Aaliyah to board an overloaded plane with an unqualified pilot, that changes everything about calling her death a simple accident, and who was responsible for putting her on it. Imagine being the family representative in that moment, standing inside the tomb 25 years later, finding that the family had been holding the truth about that flight all along. Inside the documents, those who have seen them say the family recorded deep unease about the final flight in the days that followed. Not grief alone. Specific documented concern about how the flight had been arranged and who had ignored the warnings. Aaliyah's bodyguard and several members of her team reportedly raised concerns about the aircraft that day. Some accounts say there were objections to boarding the small plane because of the amount of luggage and equipment. Those objections were overruled. The group boarded anyway. That decision is what makes what followed so disturbing. But the team was not alone in their concern. People familiar with the charter operation later raised serious questions about the pilot's qualifications. He reportedly was not authorized to fly that type of aircraft. Records about his certification became a central issue, and those records told a troubling story. Two sources of concern, the same warning. The plane was not safe, and someone let it fly anyway. After the crash, investigators found the aircraft had been carrying more weight than it was rated for. The pilot, Luis Morales, had qualifications that did not match what was required. Some of his certification history was later questioned. The full accounting of who approved that flight has never satisfied the people who loved her. The family did not trust that the truth would survive on its own, so they documented it. And they sealed it inside her tomb, where no charter company and no institution could reach it. They were not confused, they were consistent, and they were searching for the truth. On August 25, 2001, Aaliyah and her team finished filming a music video in Marsh Harbor, the Bahamas. They were scheduled to fly back to Florida. They boarded a small Cessna 402B at around 6:50 p.m. The plane was carrying 9 people and a significant amount of luggage and equipment. Within seconds of takeoff, the aircraft failed to gain altitude. It crashed in a marsh just beyond the end of the runway. All 9 people on board died. Aaliyah was 22. Here is something most people do not know. The aircraft was over its maximum takeoff weight. Investigators determined it was carrying several hundred pounds more than it was rated to handle. A plane that should never have left the ground was loaded beyond its limit and flown anyway. That is not bad luck, that is a pattern. The pilot, Luis Morales III, was not approved by the charter company to fly that aircraft. Investigators later found that his certification did not authorize him to operate that flight. Toxicology reportedly indicated substances in his system. He should not have been in that cockpit at all. Aaliyah's team had raised concerns about the luggage and the size of the plane. The aircraft was overloaded beyond its rated capacity. The pilot was not certified to fly it. Substances were reportedly found in his system. The flight was arranged in a way that ignored every warning, and 9 people died because someone decided the schedule mattered more than the safety of the people on board. A journalist who covered the investigation wrote something that has stayed with everyone who read it. Aaliyah did not die because planes sometimes fall. She died because every safeguard that should have kept her on the ground was ignored by people who had somewhere they needed her to be. When word of the tomb's contents reached those connected to the charter operation and the industry around her, the response was immediate, not public statements, legal inquiries. Representatives contacted the family within weeks. The reaction from those connected to the flight was complicated. The crash had already led to lawsuits and settlements. If the family's documents revealed more about who authorized that flight, the legal exposure could reopen. The reaction from others was simpler. It was fear. The family refused to share. The materials were found inside a Houghton tomb, in a family-controlled mausoleum, sealed by the family. No charter company and no outside party has legal claim. For the first time, the family's record of what happened exists beyond anyone's reach. They cannot access it. They cannot suppress it. The family is divided. Some want the documents made public to finally answer the questions that have lingered for 25 years. Others want them kept private so Aaliyah can rest. The question of accountability remains unresolved. In 2001, the family released 22 white doves into the sky, one for every year of Aaliyah's life. Her mother kept a single feather that fell. The family buried their daughter at Ferncliff because it was the one place they could protect her. 25 years later, the tomb was opened, and inside was proof that the family had been holding the truth about that flight all along. They protected it, the way they had always tried to protect her. This is not the story of a young star who died in a tragic plane crash. This is the story of a family that gathered the truth about how their daughter was put on a doomed flight and sealed it where the people responsible could never reach. 25 years later, Aaliyah still has the last word.